and useful content, exciting and useful content for you today. You may have just heard our robo voice advise everybody that this is being recorded. So it will be available later for those on our team and our members that would like to share this with others. So without further ado, let me introduce Jessica Frost with BMI. She's our expert presenter today. And many of you know that for decades, FRLA and BMI have had a really close working relationship to elevate music as a vital part of the Florida hospitality experience. So, through our partnership, we aim to raise awareness of the value that music can add to that environment, but also the importance of properly compensating those that create that content. So, joining us today is Jessica. She's Assistant Vice President for Customer Experience and Engagement at BMI, which is the largest performing rights organization in the world. And in her day-to-day role, Jessica develops and oversees industry outreach strategies and partner programs and works with associations such as ours to raise awareness and make sure that you have quality music in your environments and those creators are getting compensated for the hard work and creativity they provide us. So with that, Jessica, please take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. Thanks to Jeff and Ashley for setting this up, and thanks to all of you for joining. I'm thrilled to be here. A little bit of Tallahassee connection. I told Jeff and Ashley before we joined the group call that I went to middle school and high school in Tallahassee, Florida, and then was a terrible Tallahassean and went to the University of Florida for college. But I still have a lot of friends that live in Florida. We love vacationing there, and I am now currently based in Nashville. But I'm excited to be here with all of you today. I am going to jump in and give me just a second. Make sure that I'm sharing my screen. Mm, let's see. All right. Can someone give me can everyone see? Are we good?
We're good.
Yeah. All right, super. So we're going to jump in. I want to make sure I'm going to just provide kind of an overview about BMI and what we do, how we work with associations like the FRLA, which I am proud to say BMI has been a member of this association since 1989. And we have had the discount partnership in place since 2000. I can't thank the association enough. We have partnered with you over the years on many, many events, bringing BMI songwriters to play at your members' establishments. I joke that our songwriters in Nashville probably play almost as many gigs in the state of Florida as they do in Nashville. So you've been a great partner over the years, and I hope I can provide some more clarity today on the music licensing landscape. So what we're going to dig into today, we're going to talk about just federal copyright law briefly, because that's where music licensing really comes from. We're going to do a really brief musical copyrights. I'm going to touch on how BMI is both a service organization for business owners that use music, as well as music creators. We will touch on a survey that BMI did, Music Matters to Your Customers. It really talks about the power of music in driving traffic to your business, repeat customers, and people buying more food and drinks. We'll talk about performing rights organizations. What's the current landscape? Because in the United States, there is not just one, as I'm sure many of you are aware of. How our licensing fees are determined, collected, and then distributed back to our songwriters. What the benefits of a BMI music license is. What are some licensable music uses, and also some unlicensable music uses. SongView, which is a database created by ASCAP and BMI that helps provide some clarity on who we represent. I, of course, will highlight the partnership we've had for many, many years with the FRLA. What happens if a business doesn't license the music? And then what we have coming out, some exciting new developments we have coming out this year. So, and then of course, at the end, I'd love questions. So we're going to jump in. Essentially, federal copyright law states that in the United States and in most countries around the world, that if you or I create something, whether it's a movie, we write a book, we write a song, computer software, photography, that these are our creations, are our intellectual property, And in order for someone else to use that intellectual property, they need permission, and the creator of that intellectual property needs to be compensated. Many people ask, how long does copyright stay in effect for songwriters? So when you think about some of the musical greats that we've lost over the last couple years, their family, any of the songs, I'll use Prince as an example, any of the songs that Prince wrote are copywritten and protected by public performance rights for 75 years after his death. So his family's estate is still receiving royalties every time his music is publicly performed, and that will be in place 75 years from the day of his death. I like to show these images because this is something we all were familiar with when we used to watch DVDs at home. You'd put a DVD in, you would get this message that came up. You couldn't fast forward it. Essentially, what it's saying in this is you have rented or bought this DVD, which means that you have the ability to show it in the privacy of your home. But if you take it in a place of business, there is licensing that needs to be put in place for the public performance of that. The same rules apply for music. The difference is for many of us when we download Apple Music or Spotify on our phone, we probably hit the terms and conditions. We don't read them. They're a million pages long, but essentially the same messaging is put in that. And we'll talk about that some more as far as music being used in your business. There's not just public performance royalties. Public performance royalties, though, are the only royalty that BMI currently collects on. And this is basically when a songwriter, not necessarily an artist, but many of the songs you know and love are not necessarily written by the artists that are performing them. When a songwriter writes a composition, anytime that song is publicly performed, whether it's radio stations, television networks, live concert venues, sports arenas, theme parks, restaurants, and bars, really any place you go to in your day-to-day life, fitness facilities, all of that is licensable. And BMI works with many, many businesses and business associations in many markets to ensure that business owners understand, that they need to license and how they can make sure they're properly licensed. There's also mechanical royalties. This is really when a composition is duplicated for a record, a CD, or even a digital file. And then sync licenses, I think we're familiar with, or anytime you see maybe, any kind of advertisement on your television that has a classic song tied up, with the ad, or even in movies, that also has to be licensed. And that's people typically go through record labels for both of those. So, what is the service that BMI provides to both music creators and music users? Essentially, songwriters and composers write or create a song. The publishers own the work. And once a song is put out in the world, the creative community doesn't really have a way to control how people are using that or to ensure that they're being compensated. So when businesses publicly perform music, BMI provides a blanket license depending on what type of music that, what type of business you are and what type of music that you're performing. And then that gives the business blanket license that covers all of the songs in BMI's catalog. We then take those licensing fees that we've collected and distribute them back to our songwriters and publishers. It's important to note that songwriters can only be a member of one performing rights organization, but they can, when their contract is up, decide to move their catalog to another PRO. So it's not always that, songs stay with the same PRO throughout their lifetime. A couple of years ago, BMI did a survey where we reached out to restaurants, bars, breweries across the United States, and we're really looking to learn how do they use music to really drive their business. We were doing this because after COVID, so many people had to discontinue certain types of music depending on where they were in the country. And we wanted to make sure, like, do businesses as they get going and they're utilizing entertainment, how do they see that as an important driver for their business? And as you can see here, resoundingly, music has a huge role in really setting the tone, the brand of your business, and also driving people to your business, right? They said that music, a lot of times, is one of the big drivers for people doing online reviews. I think we all know now that none of us ever go almost to a restaurant or bar we've never been to without Googling first to see what do other consumers say about their business. And if businesses have music, restaurants and bars, breweries that the patrons love, that always comes up as a selling point of, why they particularly like that place. It's also that consumers these days are looking for more added value when they go out to dine or have a good time, and music is definitely something that hits the mark there. So, as I mentioned earlier, in the United States, there are, I would say, there are four performing rights organizations that you may have heard from, potentially five, and I'll talk about All Track at the end, as far as licensing catalogs of music across the country. So BMI and ASCAP are the largest. As you can see, we represent collectively anywhere from, it changes, depending on awards and all of that, but around 93 to 94% collectively of all Songwriters Hall of Fame inductees, like winners of great songwriters. Currently, it's usually said that BMI represents about 93% of all, BMI and ASCAP represent about 93% of all popular music in all genres. There are other players in the space. CSAC is a much smaller organization. As you can see, they have about 15,000 songwriters, composers, and publishers, and about 1.5 million registered songs. CSAC is invitation only. Also, GMR is invitation only, and that's where they will reach out and ask a songwriter to join them, where BMI and ASCAP have an open door policy where songwriters can join us. Most of the time, the songwriters you see joining CSAC and GMR are pretty high level songwriters. So even though they're representing a much smaller amount of songwriters and composers and publishers, they do have some very strong songwriters catalogs with them. One of the ones that comes to mind, of course, at CSAC is Bob Dylan. They represent Bob Dylan as well as Adele and others. GMR represents everyone from, Billie Eilish to Pearl Jam, to the Eagles, you name it. So you may have heard potentially from all four of these. I include all track on whenever I do this presentation because we are hearing where more businesses across the country are hearing from all track. All track is a much smaller performing rights organization. They were founded in 2017. And, one of the things that I always tell business owners when they're contacted by any PRO is that any PRO should be able to provide to you a list of their top performing songwriters or the top performing songs of the year that you may be playing in your business. So I do think All Track definitely does represent songwriters, but they're typically songwriters that you are probably not playing their music in your establishment. So what do you have access when you license with BMI? What does your license cover? It gives you access to almost 23 million songs created and owned by more than 2 million BMI songwriters, composers, and music publishers. It's tailored to your specific business needs. In other words, what type of music you're using and the size of your establishment. We have multiple payment options. And of course, at the end of the day, when business owners say, what am I actually paying for? You're supporting the craft of songwriting. Many people aren't aware that when an artist, I'll just use Kenny Chesney, for example, cuts a song, it's not that he's buying that song from the songwriter. The primary way they actually get paid, songwriters, is through these public performance licensing fees. So what determines your BMI music license if you're a restaurant, bar, or brewery? It's the type of music, the frequency of the music, your size of your establishment, which is either determined by a posted occupancy or posted fire code. And it's always important to remind people that TVs are included if you're paying any type of recorded fee, because TVs are licensable, and I'll talk about that further down the line. There's multiple payment options, depending on what works best with your budget. So what actually is licensable in a business? First and foremost is live music. One of the things that we hear from business owners occasionally is they think I'm already paying the band. I don't need to license for the music being performed. Paying the band does not actually cover the public performance of music the band is performing in your establishment. None of the PROs, licensed bands, DJs, or karaoke providers directly. We license the establishments that are deciding to have the music. So it's important to know that even if you're paying a music provider to come in and provide entertainment, you still need the public performance licensing to cover that music in your establishment. If you are having local bands, especially in your area, that are playing some of their own originals, I always encourage business owners to say, hey, if you're with BMI, you should go sign up for BMI Live. This is a way where a band or musician can go in and put the day they played in an establishment, what their set list was, and they will get a payment from BMI on that public performance. So that's how we're ensuring that some of the live music licensing fees that businesses pay do go directly back into the pockets of local musicians in their area. Other recorded use, DJs and other recorded music are licensable. Excuse me, karaoke, televisions. So a lot of businesses think that if they're playing like direct TV for business, that that is covered for any music that's being shown on the television. It's not. There are channels on direct TV called Music Choice, which is if a business is playing that, that would cover the public performance of the music. That's because direct TV is licensing directly with the PROs on that. But as far as any music that plays during sporting events that's being, shown live in your establishment, they are not covered for licensing for that. So that's one of the biggest questions we get from business owners, especially if they have a lot of televisions, is do I need to pay for this? And the resounding is yes. There's a lot of music that is throughout numerous programming, especially sports, that is licensable. So if you're a business owner and you're, just playing some type of recorded or background music, but it's not through a CMS or mood media, it's important to know that any of these service providers seen here, your payment that you're paying to them each month to access their app and their music catalog does not cover for the public performance licensing fees for a business. In fact, all of these providers, if you dug into the fine print, specifically say, your account is not covered to publicly perform music because basically your monthly fee that you're paying each month is just access to that content. But there are some companies out there that do have licenses directly with the performing rights organizations, Mood Media, SiriusXM, Soundtrack Your Brand, Cloud Cover, and Pandora for Business. All of these groups have negotiated a rate directly with the PROs, and as part of your monthly fee with them, they are indeed taking part of that fee and sending it back to the PROs for the public performance. So I always encourage business owners, if you're just looking for an option that is not, it's just background music, these are good options if you don't want to have to license potentially with, numerous PROs. So one of the questions I always like to show people is like, you're always like, well, how do I know who they represent? How can I go and see who, BMI's catalog? So the top song right now, the Billboard Hot 100 song as of last week was Choosing Texas, which is a great song by BMI affiliate Ella Langley, who we are so excited for her success. We were working with her well before she was a household name, and she is, just really blowing up. So to have an idea of who BMI represents, if you go to BMI's website and you put in Songview, or if you just Google Songview, this is a joint database that ASCAP and BMI worked together many, many years ago to make it easier for business owners when they're, wanting to know, hey, these are some of the top songs I'm playing in my bar every week. Who is this? Who are these, songwriters affiliated with? You can go to Songview. You can look from I have the title here, but if you click on that drop down, you can either look by the artist name, the songwriter name, the title of the song, like the number, which many of us would know. I usually look by the actual title of the song. And when you put in Choosing Texas, it comes up. Now, this is unique because not all songs are 100% BMI. But as you can see, when you look in Song View on this song, you can see the there's four songwriters on this song, and they are all affiliated with BMI. Many times I'll say I used to use when Morgan Wallen's last album came out and was, huge. I would use some of his songs as examples. He's also with BMI, but he might have four or five songwriters on every song. And some of them may be ASCAP, some of them may be BMI, one of them may be GMR. So it's important when you're playing music. I always stress to business owners that having a license with one PRO is not going to cover the public performance of music you're playing in your business. Songwriters are very collaborative, they work together, and many times these will be, or it might be, 50% one and 50% the other. As I mentioned earlier, we have had a partnership in place with the FRLA since 2000. And what does that essentially mean? Well, it's been great. The association really works with BMI to help educate the marketplace, like today's webinar. We partner to bring in entertainment to association industry events. We always are, if any of your members, for the FRLA staff on this call, if any of your members ever have questions, even about other PROs, we are available to answer questions and be a soundboard to help them navigate and feel confident about the business decision they're making. But also, excitingly for you, as a member of the FRLA, you have additional savings. You can save up to 20% a year off your BMI licensing fees. I always encourage business owners, just remind our reps and say, hey, I'm a member of the FRLA. And when you're going into pay or license, you will see these savings. So please take advantage of it. So what happens if a business decides not to license? I will, preface this to say that the majority of business owners that BMI reaches out to license. I think they understand the value of music in their business and they take care of it. But we do have, occasionally a small percentage of businesses that just either for whatever reason think they don't need the license or they don't want to pay for it. Copyright infringement can be expensive. It can be up to $30,000 for each copyrighted song performed and up to $150,000 for each copyrighted song that's deemed willful infringement. That means where the business owner has been educated on their need for a license and has refused to do so. The business owner can also be required to pay copyright owner's cost, including attorney fees. This is the route we never want to go down. It's expensive. It can be, it's very time consuming for us and administratively. And really, we just want to educate the marketplace of the importance of music. I always encourage if we do, have association members in states where we have partnerships and they're heading down a legal avenue, I always reach out to the association and say, how can we get this resolved? So we don't want to end up in this place, but I will say there are times when we have to. I think BMI in 2025 sued about 160 businesses across the country. And these are all businesses typically that by the time we are at that point, we have been reaching out to the business owner for almost a year. So what are some exciting things to look for in 2026? BMI is updating our customer licensing center. What currently our customers use is Community, and it's a little clunky. We've gotten quite a bit of feedback from our customers about it not being easy to use. So we're excited about Licensing Center. You'll hear more about that. We will, of course, be leaning on our association partners to help get that message out to the market. But it's going to make it easier for businesses to take care of their license with BMI, not have to call in and speak to someone, not have to respond to letters. So we are excited about this and more to come on this. This is my contact at BMI. You're always contact information. You're always available, of course, to reach out to your association partners as well. But you can also reach out to me directly about anything regarding either your BMI license or if you're thinking about using music and you want to know what it would cost, I'm happy to answer any of those questions. So I appreciate all of your time. And now I'm going to open it up to questions. If you want to put it, great. Oh, I already see some in here. Okay. Sure. I'm a songwriter. I spend a lot of time in the forums learning the industry and have a family member that is in the music licensing space. My songs I write are performed by AI singers and musicians. Okay. This is a new thing we're all navigating in this current world. From that perspective, I would like to know what BMI's position is regarding AI generated music, how BMI will be affected by the new methods. Okay, and if a member of the association is using BMI but also plays licensed music, is that a violation of the BMI contracts for the member of the association? No, it is okay. So before I jump into the AI, I will say I am mildly knowledgeable about, meaning BMI has done a tremendous amount of work regarding AI, mainly based on feedback from our customers. I mean, from our creators. Hold on, I'm gonna look. I'm grabbing something really quickly that I'm going to put in here. We are very much aware that this is something we need to be prepared for. I would recommend you check out, this is BMI's AI page where we're talking about how we're currently um, navigating this space. So I highly recommend you check that out. And we do provide updates on that. Songwriters are in a weird place with that. Some of them, of course, have embraced AI like you have, and some of them are hesitant to do so. But either way, we want to be there in that space to support the writers that are. So, check out that page, and learn how we're engaging in DC and just in general with AI. Your other question, if I understood it correctly, you basically ask if a business had a license with BMI but they were playing also music from, let's just say GMR's catalog, and they did not have a GMR license, if I understand correctly, then would that put them in conflict or not being following the agreement with BMI? It does not. The PROs do not work together. I mean, I always want to be honest with business owners and let them know that it's very likely if they're playing a lot of music in their business, they are going to need potentially all four PROs, BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, and GMR. And but with that said, we do not work with the other PROs, and it does not put the business owner in breach with BMI's contract if they are choosing to play music from GMR and not secure a license. Um, Okay, and then the next question is about global music rights. How do I know that I'm already covered by the other three? So what I would recommend, you may have seen, well, I'm not certain, but earlier at the end of last year, BMI had an announcement that BMI and ASCAP announced that CSAC and GMR were also going to be, their performance data and membership data was going to be ingested into Songview. This is great because it's going to make Songview even more of a place of more transparency for business owners. They are still ingesting a lot of that data. I mean, they've been doing it since the end of last year. But I would recommend if you are very familiar with the music that you're playing in your establishment, go into Songview and look up some of those songs and see if any of the songs come up as being partially represented by GMR. That would be your best bet. But I will say if you're playing a lot of current popular music, it's very likely you do need a GMR license because they do represent, again, some very high profile Bruno Mars, Post Malone, the Eagles, Pearl Jam, Billie Eilish. They don't have a ton of songwriters, but the ones that they have very robust catalogs. Is Okay, what do annual costs look like for live music only? Um, so that's a good question. It really depends on the size of your establishment and how much music you're using. So the average BMI licensing fee for restaurants and bars as of this year is right around $1,000 a year. And again, you still would be eligible for the 20% savings, off of your BMI license as being part of a member of the FRLA. So, but I think it really depends on the venue. If you have a venue, like if you've been to Nashville, you've seen the big venues downtown where there's live bands on every floor. They're open, 7 nights a week. Some of them may charge a cover. They've got recorded music. They've got televisions. Some of those bars could easily be paying in the, multi-thousands a year annually. And that's really just based on them having a large footprint as far as an occupancy and that they are a heavy music user. but I would say the average fee right now is right around $1,000 a year. One of the things that we definitely, always remind business owners as that you do have the ability, if your music use changes, to update your license with BMI up to 4 times a year. So, if you decide to do music and then you're like, I don't think we're going to have live that much, or we want to have live even more, you can always call and update that and we'll adjust your fee. All right. And do I have any other questions? Anyone else, even on the association side? Does anyone have any questions?
Well, I think you've covered it all, Jess. They're pretty quiet for FRLA crowd today. Any other
Um,
any other
I
questions
see
for
one. So
Jessica?
here's one. If you were a business wanting to be cognizant with usage rights, how does any of this apply? Um, I think that the main thing is I would say that, other than working with your association and asking them, the FRLA team is very educated on BMI and music licensing. So you can always start with them if you don't want to reach out to a PRO directly. The Better Business Bureau has an excellent page on their website called Know Your Musical Copyrights. It also talks about what is licensable in businesses, how songwriters get paid, and what the, repercussions are if a business does not license the music in their business. So I think those are some trusted resources. And also, I would encourage you to go to BMI's website, bmi.com/EDE. And that's where you can see the current license in the marketplace. And you can also read some of the more frequently asked questions in the marketplace about, music use or do I need this? It's really the questions that a lot of our sales reps get when they're on the phone. Okay. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I didn't see the social media in particular, so I didn't answer your question accurately. So social media is interesting. If you're putting anything in, on many business owners, obviously these days use Instagram and Facebook. I mean, I'd love to like stalk a restaurant before I go there on Instagram and see like pictures of the dish and what people are saying. And any of those sites are licensed with the PROs directly. So they are tracking. I mean, we all know we're being tracked down to the of everything we do in any of these sites. So they are tracking the music that's being played. They have direct agreements with all of the PROs and they are, compensating them and licensing for that. Where it gets questionable about if you're using music on social media is if you have your own website, your own company website, and you are having, maybe you're showing videos of performances that are being played there, or you just have music playing as part of the, experience on your website. You would need a license for that, and BMI does have a website specific license. It's very inexpensive. So if that's something you're interested in, but I will say if you're using some of the other social media platforms, those are already being covered and, tracked, and they're being paid on those. So any other questions or? Well, I know that I want to respect everyone's time. I appreciate you all just even joining and know that you have a great team. Obviously, you know that with the association, it's advocating for you. I regularly hear from our association partners with questions from their members about music licensing. Some of them kind of sensitive, like, oh no, they just got this letter and they thought they didn't need this. And so please utilize them and as well as feel free to reach out to me. And we want to be a resource to the industry. The number one thing we want is that business owners see the value of music in their establishment and want to continue to offer that to their patrons. So
Fantastic. Well, Jessica, that's been extraordinarily informative. And as mentioned at the top of the webinar, this will be available in the next few days, I guess, um, and for on-demand reference. So please support your music creators and reach out to BMI if they can help you. And with that, I'll ask one more time, any questions, any closing comments from anyone? Okay, hearing none, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for participating. Jessica, it was great being with you, and I hope to see you at an FRLA event soon.
Yes, I do too. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.